Today I have a hot topic for you, and that is, was Gojo born a genius or not? This question was inspired by my previous video where I asked, which technique is better, Shrine or Limitless? After asking that, got into the comments, then we got to arguing about, was Gojo born a genius or not? To answer that question, we must ask a few and answer them as well. What is a genius? So a genius is someone that has super intellectual or creative or natural abilities. That's what a genius is. You possess some sort of niche like thing that you're really good at and you just, no one's comparable to you. All right, that's what that is. Now the next question is, are geniuses born or made? We need to know this because the answer can just void this video in general. The answer is both. You can be both born or made a genius. With that information, I wanted to weigh both options, both arguments for and against Gojo being born a genius. So I wanted to say, okay, here are the arguments for Gojo being a genius, born a genius, and here are the arguments for him not. And when I attempted to do that, there was simply little to zero evidence that Gojo was actually born a genius. The biggest argument, or at least the initial argument for everyone, is that Gojo's birth shook the Jujutsu Society world. It's like the social structure of it. True, but it was his birth, not him. It could have been anyone born with those two abilities. And you know what abilities I'm talking about. That would be the Limitless Curse Technique and the Six Eyes, which is a genetic, genetic ability. It's not cursed energy fueled. Anyone born at that time when Gojo, it didn't have to be Gojo, could have been Hamon Gojo, it didn't matter. As long as he had those two abilities, he would have been described as shaking the society structure. Why? Because one hadn't been born in 400 years. And now that one is born, it's gonna shake the balance of the big three clans and all that stuff. That's it. Gojo wasn't, they didn't know he wasn't popped out of his mother and they're like, he's really good at Jujutsu sorcery. He's gonna change the world. That's not what happened. It was simply the fact that he was born, all right? So let's come to agreement on that. That's not what it is. But that statement, the fact that his birth shook the world, is the premise on which Geto's big question rests. And we all know the question. Are you strong because you're Satoru Gojo? Or are you Satoru Gojo because you're strong? All that means is, are you strong because of who you are as an individual? Or are you strong because you were born with favorable circumstances? Your family, your bloodline, your techniques. Which one is it? I think the simple fact that that question was even posed lets us know that Geto recognized, Gojo, you're not strong because of who you are right now. You're strong because of the abilities you have. Because Gojo and Geto consider themselves pretty much equally the strongest. That changed. I'm not saying Gojo didn't ever become a genius. I happen to hold the belief that he became a genius after his run-in with Toji. All right, something happened. And I like to think of it as the phenomenon in real life called acquired savant syndrome, which means you become a genius or a savant in something after you suffer a traumatic brain injury or come on, a brain injury or head injury. That's literally exactly what happened to Gojo. Head injury, then he becomes genius, then he awakens. Without that injury, Gojo was not headed for being a genius. Examples are, he could not use reverse curse technique. I got into the arguments with people in the comments on the Limitless versus Shrine video. They're like, oh, he can't, doesn't mean he can't do it. Brother, if people his same age, his peers, can do it, they're less talented than him. They don't have the Six Eyes, which allows them to perceive and see curse energy at an atomic level. So Gojo can see Shoko using reverse curse technique, and yet he still can't replicate it. Everyone else that had to learn reverse curse technique had to learn it off feeling. Okay, you do it like this, and then boom. That's harder than being able to actually see what's going on, and he still couldn't do it. That is not genius. Then you apply curse technique reversal, which is something you couldn't do. Basically, I'm referring to red. I'm not saying it's easy, because it's even harder than reverse curse technique, because you have to create the energy itself, which is reverse curse technique, and then you have to expertly apply it to your existing technique to reverse its effects. Pretty hard, but he couldn't do that. A genius would probably be able to do that, or at least we would see at some point in the story him being like, oh, like I'm getting close to it. Like, oh, this is what I got to do. That never happened. It was not a gradual thing of him learning it. It was, boom, get stabbed in the head. Now I can do it. So that lets you know that the injury is the catalyst for the genius. Acquired savant syndrome. The argument against that was Gojo never had the need to use reverse curse technique. That's such a shallow argument in and of itself. But if I believe that, it's true, I agree. Like Goku said it best, power comes in response to a need, not a desire. But he kind of needed it before when he was getting sliced and cut up before he got stabbed in the head. It did happen in quick succession, but the injury to the brain came first. His brain itself physically, biologically was altered first by a blade stabbing into it. And then with that injury, something in his brain shifted and then he became a genius. That's the truth of it. Then he became the like, oh, like I can do this. It happened literally instantly. The same day he got stabbed in the head, he was able to use reverse curse technique reversal, and then he could fucking make an imaginary ball of matter that could erase shit. That is not genius. That is genius, but it's genius in response to a injury. It happened so fast the same day. It's not like Gojo got his ass whooped and then he slowly got all that stuff. He instantly got it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, the reason he's a genius now is because of the injury. Without that, Gojo was not showing signs of progress for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, he wasn't like, oh, like I'm getting closer to it. No, that didn't happen. It was because of the injury. He was not born a genius. And even as an adult, his genius is based off of like a perpetual flow state. He can't even explain how he does it. That just lets you know that he wasn't born a genius in the first place, because he can't explain simple domain. He can't explain how to use reverse curse technique because he himself is not in control of it. His body does it naturally. His body also efficiently, almost perfectly recycles his cursed energy. He is not doing it, which is why he runs into problems when he fights people like Sukuna that can interrupt those, you know, automatic cycles. You interrupt it and you throw Gojo off his game. You do that to Sukuna, it doesn't work. That's an actual genius because he can answer everything and explain exactly how he does everything. You can strip him of his technique and give him another technique. He can make it better and still kill you. So that's actual genius, like functional genius that you can explain. And that's not a really good example because geniuses often can't explain what they do, which is fine. But more impressive genius is being able to do something and break it down and teach it to somebody else. That is true intellect. Being able to do something insane, something that no one else can think of, and then explain it to people that are stupider than you. That's actual genius. If you can't explain it, you don't even understand it yourself, if that makes sense. He doesn't understand his own shit. And that just lets you know even more that his genius is a result of that injury. It wasn't something he acquired on his own, like progress and learning, or he wasn't even born with it, because if he was born with it, he would be able to do it. But he couldn't until something happened. So there's no evidence for him being born a genius. Do not get me mistaken. Gojo is a genius, but only after the awakening, which I think all, sane and like not crazy people will agree with. Like he was a genius after that. He was not a genius. He was pretty much relative to Geto when they were children. It's just he had a better technique, which made him stronger than Geto. Geto recognized that and he was like, hey, I think you're kind of strong because of your technique, not because you're actually better than me. But then that changed after the run-in with Toji, and then they split up and all that stuff. But the question being posed, which means it leads us to believe that Geto was weighing both options, which means one of those was fucking true. It's really not hard to understand. We gotta have reading comprehension. But you know what I'm saying? Gojo just wasn't capable of the stuff that a genius would be capable of in terms of manipulating cursed energy. His students, which were the same age as him, are all capable of that, and they didn't have to get stabbed in the head to do it. They could use reverse curse technique in different ways. They fought better. They were better fighters than Gojo was as that same age. Like Maki, better than him. Yuta, I would like to think, fights better than him at 16, 17. Yuji, for sure. Todo, for sure. Like, these people fight better than him. They use their abilities better than Gojo used his ability at the same age. His ability just is fucking hacky, bro. That's the explanation for it. But then he became a genius, and I'm not saying that they didn't surpass him. Gojo's still stronger than all of them. They never surpassed him, but that doesn't mean they don't fight better than him, if that makes sense. Like, you can be a better fighter, but if you're going against someone who's fucking 800 pounds, like, you're going to lose. They're going to be better than you. But, you know, Gojo's still a heavyweight, big shit starter. Like, he's really like that. But he's not like that because he was born like that. Something happened to him, acquired savant syndrome. But you can let me know your thoughts. That's just my stance on it. I don't claim to be the truth. But that's my truth, and I elaborated and explained and refuted arguments against it. So come, if you got better shit, come with it. I'll hear you out. But yeah, that's just where I stand right now. You can change my mind. What do you think? Peace. 君の気持ちを大事にしなかった私の頭